Welcome to the Popcorn Innovation Podcast Series, a special pre-summit conversation created by Cat Squared and co-branded with Mavens of Manufacturing. I'm Megan Zimba, host of Mavens of Manufacturing, and I'm really excited to help bring a new layer of storytelling to this year's Popcorn, the Innovation Summit presented by Cat Squared, happening August 10th through 13th at Oak Lawn Racing Casino Resort in Hot Springs, Arkansas. For nearly 30 years, Cat Squared has worked with food manufacturers to bring greater clarity, control, and visibility to complex plant floor operations. This year's summit builds on that very foundation by looking at where the industry is headed next. This series is designed to do more than just introduce speakers. We're setting the stage for the conversations that matter most across food manufacturing right now, including connected operations, predictive intelligence, traceability, AI, interoperability, cybersecurity, and the shift from operational complexity to operational clarity. Because the future of food manufacturing is not going to be built by more disconnected dashboards, more isolated systems, or more data nobody knows how to use. It will be built by people, partners, and technologies that connect the dots from farm to fork. Today, my featured guest is Neamat ElTazi, COO and co-founder of PoultrySync. Neamat is going to help us unpack how live site data, farm-level visibility, and predictive analytics can support better planning, earlier intervention, and stronger downstream performance. Neamat, thank you so much for joining us on this special series of the Popcorn Innovation Podcast series that we were doing before the actual summit in August. So you are the COO and the co-founder of PoultrySync. So what led you into poultry technology, data integration, and operational analytics?
First of all, thank you so much. And I'm very happy to be part of the Popcorn event. I have a background in technology. I have a PhD in data management, data analytics. So all my life, I've been working with a lot of data in different domains. So what led me actually to this industry is that I found that the poultry industry is the largest protein industry in the world. And it's a very data-rich industry. And surprisingly, all the data is available, but it's disconnected in different silos. And I found that this is a huge gap. So me and my co-founders thought, okay, this is something that will actually make a great impact if we use that gap and we try to fill the gap with PoultrySync. So that's why we worked in that industry. And from that time, actually, I've been working in chicken for more than 10 years now.
That's amazing. Well, for someone like me who's not very well into the poultry industry, I'm kind of on the outside of the industry. What sort of operational pressures are poultry producers under right now? Can you explain those to someone like me that's outside of that?
Yeah, it's okay. People outside the industry, you see the chicken on the shelf in the supermarket.
Yeah.
And think it's just the chicken and that's it. It's very easy. There's no pressure around that. So there are a lot of small things, but actually it compounds and it gets very complicated. One of the main things is that the industry runs on very slim margins. There are a lot of small performance issues and a lot of decisions that need to be taken into consideration every day in order to get this chicken on the shelf at the end. One of the things is that you're working with living animals. So these living animals, you cannot actually hit a pause or a break button just to stop your plant from working. You need actually to take the decisions, and these decisions will affect the performance like 2 weeks after taking that decision. So you have to make sure that that decision is correct on the right time and the right decision as well in order to make a good performance and make a good chicken at the end on the shelf. So yeah, there are a lot of small issues, yes, available.
And now you mentioned before, because we had a conversation prior to this one to get to know each other a little bit better. You mentioned that PoultrySync was designed to work across different countries and production environments. Why was that so important for you and your co-founders at the beginning?
Actually, one of the main things is that you can find that there are a lot of common things between different countries. One of the things is you're talking about the same bird, but same biology, same everything. But at the end, you have different conditions between different countries. And we wanted actually PoultrySync to work on these different countries and to work everywhere. So we made a decision that when we started, any small feature that is going inside the solution has to work anywhere in the world. So if something can be done as a practice in 3 different ways, we implemented these three different ways inside the solution. So that at the end, when we go to any country right now, it's very easy to implement the solution without having to customize inside of the game.
That's awesome, because that seems to, that I'm assuming that knocks down a lot of barriers that could have been there before between different producers and teams in different countries.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, where do live production teams often have data available, but still struggle to turn it into a timely decision? Where do you see that happening?
Actually, it's since data is already stay in silos, so you have data. And each part of the live production, of the whole production stages, so there are a lot of stages. So you're talking about breeders, broilers, all in the farm, and then there's hatchery between them, and there is also the processing plant after that, and there's grandparents before that, and so on. So each part in the farm or the live production affect each the next and affect the previous one. So for example, you can say that inside the hatchery, the eggs inside the hatchery, if you think about one of the KPIs is the hatchability or the fertility. These are KPIs that affect actually the breeders, the previous stage. So when you know it on time, and as a breeder's manager, when he knows that numbers on time, he will act according to these numbers. But if he waits until he gets these numbers, decisions will be so late. I think that one of the most big issues that is really happening right now is having these data in silos, and we're not, there's no view, a common view for all the data inside the live production.
Gotcha. Well, Popcorn is intentionally following the operational story from farm to fork. When birds arrive at the plant, what kinds of issues can often be traced back to live side conditions? Like you mentioned from the very beginning at the egg part of it, is there anything else that can be traced back to live side conditions after the birds hatch?
Of course, one of the main things that the plant manager will notice directly is, of course, the grading issue or inconsistencies in weight. So if you have inconsistencies in the weights, you will have to go back and see. You will not actually be able to act inside the plant. You'll have a lot of issues with the machines, with the automating of the machines, and you'll have a lot of issues also in aligning with the contracts that you have, with the specs of the contracts that you have, and so on. So you can trace back this into the live farms, and you will be able actually to know exactly which farm has this issue. And if you were able to do that before reaching the plant, that would be much better, because in this case, you'll be acting before actually the chickens reach the plant. So you will know that there's a small, subtle difference in the weight, and you will be able to see that there's a difference. You will need to act on that difference. So for example, in PoultrySync, you can see the weight curve and you'll see that. So it's not just one house. You have 300, 400,000 houses, all that. You will be able to see it directly and see some alerts inside the solution so that you can act upon that without having inconsistencies, and the uniformity will be better, and you'll be able to take a uniform standard chickens to the plant.
Can you provide an example, like a specific example? So you mentioned weight, and when teams are able to see that live side condition earlier, such as the weight differentials, what decisions improve downstream then? So does it affect, producers or feeding the chicken? Like, is there any other decisions that are affected downstream by seeing those earlier live conditions earlier?
There are a lot of small, quiet signals that if you see it in the farm, you'll be able actually to do it before going to the plant and be an expensive problem at the plant. So one of the things, of course, is temperature. So it's easy to see that the temperature, you'll have some alerts if the temperature, the serene alert, for example, if the temperature is very high. But if the temperature is normal, it's a subtle difference in the temperature. It's not that big. you'll not get a regular alert. So connecting, for example, PoultrySync to the controllers, like, for example, Finecom controller or something, or any other controllers, you'll be able actually to see that subtle difference between the standard or the best practices of the breeds and actually on the ground. And once you see it, you'll be able to get that alert from PoultrySync to tell you that there is that subtle difference will make a heat stress, for example. And that heat stress will yield different issues in the weights. And it will raise, for example, mortality. You'll get less number of chickens that are going to the plant. The reason for misalignment also for the contracts. So this is a small issue that can happen, for example, one day, but can happen many times in a day in many houses. And you'll not be able to see it until you go to the plant after 2 weeks. So this is just another example of that. There are a lot of examples, yes.
Are you seeing those decisions typically show up in like yield, labor planning, uptime, consistency, margin, or are they showing up somewhere else?
Actually, it's showing in most of these parts.
Okay.
If, for example, you send less number of chickens, you'll not be able to know on time the number of chickens that you're going to send. So, for example, before 2 weeks, you have the contract and you know that after 2 weeks, you need, for example, 300,000 chickens. But actually today, you know that these 300,000 chickens are already on the ground and you know that you are going to take them on that day, you know that they are available. But after 2 weeks, there's any spike in mortality or there's an issue that happens and you will find that these numbers were not taken into the plan and you don't have these numbers. So in this case, it will affect the labors. So because you don't need all that labor, for example, on that day at the plant or even on the catching team, because you will not have that number. It will affect everything and even the yield as well, because at the end, you might have also inconsistencies, issues in the weights and the grading issues. So all this affects all the rest of all operational KPIs at the plant as well.
So interesting. Well, you're going to be at this year's summit and your session's going to focus on turning live side data into predictive intelligence. What does predictive intelligence look like in a real poultry operation?
It's your eyes or the farmer's eyes. So any producer needs to see what his flocks are going to be after 3 weeks. So predictions will help a lot in finding the correct weight, finding the correct number or livability, the number of chickens that you'll get at the end of the cycle. It will help you also identify a lot of the inconsistencies in the weights, because you can predict, for example, in PoultrySync, we predict uniformity, we predict the different grading, we predict also the livability, the number of chickens that are going to be live. We predict the feed conversion ratio. So at the end, you know exactly what's going on. You don't see what has happened, but actually you see what's going on will happen and you act accordingly. So you know that there's a problem will be coming after 2 weeks. So you need to act right now in order to get the best yield at the end.
Is there a difference between having more live side data and having an earlier warning system that operations can actually use? Like, is there a difference between those two?
Actually, there is a difference, because you can have, like, for example, weak signals. So, for example, you can have like mortality loss, the loss, or you can have less feed intake, for example, but very small ones. You can have temperature that is not a subtle difference in temperature or a subtle difference in weight gain. So you don't see it by eye. But having all these signals together, for example, in PoultrySync, we have the whole picture, a full picture together. So when you see it together, with the controllers data at the farm, with the data coming from the finance, with everything connected together, you'll see a full picture. And when you see the full picture, you'll be able to get a better decision at the end. But it's very easy to miss things when you see things in silos. So I remember one of our customers is a production manager who used to actually get 300 emails before using PoultrySync. He has all the data. All the data is already there. So the problem is not the lack of data. The problem is getting the data visualize the data in a form that you can act upon. So he has, like, for example, 300 emails for 300 houses, and he has to go through them, all of them, in order, and these are only the houses. He still need to look at the lab performance. He still need to look at these are broilers. He needs to see in the breeder's performance and see the connection and manually adjust everything together. But right now, he just opened a dashboard. It's a full picture, full view of everything integrated together to be able to take the right decision. So it takes him minutes instead of like 8 or 9 hours a day to just to see what happened and start to act upon.
Yeah, I can't imagine having that many emails and trying to figure out which data goes to what email, because I'm sure they were asking for different things. I know that you've mentioned temperature and weight and feed. Are those some of the earliest warning signs producers and processors should really pay attention to then before variability reaches the plant? Or are there other signals or warning signs that they need to pay attention to outside of those that you mentioned?
Yeah, I think these are the main things, but it depends on each stage. So when I mentioned is the for broiler, if you go to the breeders, there is also the egg production, of course. So you can see the egg production per hen day, egg production per hen week. So each stage has its own KPIs that you need to look at and identify exactly if there's a subtle difference. And once you see that subtle difference with the rest, you'll be able to act upon.
Do you have a specific example where that connected data actually helped a team intervene earlier or avoid an operational surprise?
Okay, I can give you one example. It's for the broilers. Inside the broilers, there's, for example, the feed conversion ratio. Sorry, not the feed conversion ratio. There's a ratio between the water to feed ratio, sorry. So the water to feed ratio, this is one of the KPI that is normally a producer can see it and needs to take care of it. In PoultrySync, one of our customers saw that there's a subtle change inside the water to feed ratio. And when he saw it early, he saw that there's a problem in the temperature, because at the end, he found that the sensor inside the farm was malfunctioned. There is a heat stress, and that's why actually the chickens were drinking more. This actually helped a lot the farm managers so that he can actually go and see what's the problem and act upon that and see that there's a problem exactly in the sensor, and they fix the sensor and everything was correct. Because if you leave that, in an hour or two, you'll have all your chicken as mortality. So that's a small example, but a very large impact.
But let's get into more of food safety, traceability, and trust. So you explained that PoultrySync can trace back from the processing plant through earlier operations. Why is that important for food safety and operational response?
I can tell you, if you have a problem with the shelf, it's very important actually to go back to the source very quickly to be able to recall correctly. Because, for example, let's say you slaughtered like 6 or 7 houses or 10 houses on that day, and then you distributed that chickens to the supermarkets, different supermarkets. And then the next day you distributed another batch to the different supermarkets, and you got 10 more houses as well. When you have a problem, you have to go back to the slaughterhouse and trace it back to the slaughterhouse or the processing plant, and then recall that batch from the different supermarkets and try to fix the source, not the symptom. So to be able to go back to that source and know exactly which house has that problem, it's not easy. And you need to actually get that very quickly, trace it back very quickly. Because other than that, you will need to stop the production of all these houses, the 10 houses together. But if you know exactly which house, like 2 houses, if you can recall it back to only these, trace it back, to these 2 houses or 3 houses, you'll be able to get the problem and you'll be able to fix the source problem. Not only the symptom, just recall it from the supermarkets and that's it. So I guess that's the main thing. So in PoultrySync, actually what we do is that we can trace back everything from the processing plant throughout the whole value chain. You can go back even not only at the broilers level at the houses, but you can go back also to the hatchery, you can go back to the breeders and so on. And each one of them, you can actually go back to the management practices that were done inside the house, the vaccines that were taken, the medications, issues that happened and how it got solved, because we already also track all the communication that happened between the farm managers and the production managers. everything in one place. So when you get back to a cycle, you see the cycle with all what happened, not only numbers. I mean, you can see not only raw numbers, you can see pictures, you can see communication that happened, something that is very important to just go back and know and identify the problem very quickly.
It's also helpful because I know that we've had a couple instances in my personal home where a supermarket had a recall on some of the chicken that we bought, and it was just really helpful that they had like the SKU number and the dates and everything like that, so we were able to locate it quickly in our refrigerator and get rid of it before anyone consumed it. So I know on the consumer side of things, me personally, I appreciate that traceability. Are there any areas in the industry that still need stronger data standards or interoperability that you can talk about?
Yes, I guess one of the main things, the interoperability is actually still something that a lot of vendors need to take care of. And I guess this is not something that should be just put on the side. This is very important because in an era that we are already working with a lot of data, big data, with AI and predictive analytics and everything, you need that data to be a standard, to be connected to each other, to see, for example, when I go to any farm, the farm manager should say, okay, this is very easy to connect to any other vendors. So any solution needs to be open so that at the end, you can share all the data from any vendor to the other, and industry can actually benefit from that. So as a farm manager, I can buy any solution, and I'm aware that this solution is already open and can connect to any other vendor without any issue. And this is something I can see. This is something that we, as an industry, still lacks it.
Okay. Are there any conversations then that the industry still need to have around data ownership, operational trust, and shared visibility? Because I've had other conversations, even outside of food manufacturing, that we're collecting so much data and we've already had so much data. Who owns it? Who needs to report on it? What conversations do you think that we still need to have around that data in terms of ownership, operational trust, and shared visibility?
Yeah, I think this is the most issue, also a big issue that's available inside the industry, because one of the things that we saw when we still see when we go to any producer and integrator, that they always feel that this is my data, I cannot share it with anyone. But actually, if you share it, you'll be able to benefit from that data, because at the end, you will not benefit from it if it's available inside some emails, or if it's available inside paper, or it's still inside your computer without putting it or integrating with other vendors, so that at the end you'll benefit from your own data. So I guess one of the things that we can do, and we are already doing right now, is making sure that the data is not ours, of course. The ownership is the producer's, but at the end, the producer should share the data in order to help him benefit from that data. So that's what we do right now. When we go to any producer, there is a non-confidentiality agreement between us and them. And if there is another vendor that we will integrate with them as well, there is non-confidentiality also agreement, so that at the end, it's the ownership is for the data ownership is for the producer or the integrator. But as vendors, we integrate with each other, and the full picture is available for the producer. So we don't use the data. We don't take the data and give it to someone else. We don't take the data and use it for statistics, for example. We don't do anything with the data unless the data is, any processing for the data is for the benefit of this producer or that integrator. So something that we do, and I guess it's coming. People started to trust this operation. Before, like 2 years ago, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy to trust this at all. But right now, their data is on the cloud, and they can use it from the cloud, and they can use it like any other subscription solution. And they know that this data is their own, and no one else can see it or use it by any means.
So are there any concerns with your customers around cybersecurity? Because I know that's like a concern in other manufacturing industries where certain companies don't want their information available on maybe like a cloud platform because they're afraid of it getting hacked into. Is there that same type of fear within poultry production that you've come across or have had conversations around?
The same question that we get when we sign with any new customer. The first thing is security of their own data, and if there is a hack or if there is a problem inside the data, how they can get it again. If it's on the cloud, they'll not be able to get it. So these are all the same concerns. And what we do actually is that we have a backup strategy where we back up the data and the solution for each customer in 3 different countries. So if there's something every 24 hours, there is a full backup for everything in 3 different countries. So if there is anything that happened, like tsunami or anything in the whole data center inside one country, or for example, like what happened during the previous month when a lot of data centers actually got bombed, this is something that will not affect us at all, because at the end, you have the whole backup in another country and you'll have all the data. The system will be, or the solution will be working without any issues. And that's actually what happened during the last couple of months. Everything was running fine without any problems at our side.
You just brought up a point that I didn't even think of. Like, there's other factors outside of hackers getting into data centers. There's environmental issues and geopolitical issues going on that could affect the safety of your data too. Where do you think poultry operations are headed over the next 5 years when it comes to things like artificial intelligence, predictive analytics, and interoperability? Where do you see the industry heading?
One of the main things that I can see is that the whole industry will be from reactive to predictive. So everyone is now reacting to what's happening on the ground. So when we see everything before it happens, this will be proactive. So you take the decisions before something happens. So I guess this is one of the main things. And I can see it actually, we started, the AI helps a lot in this. I can see that there are a lot of new technologies that are already available. In PoultrySync, for example, we started to have a large language model that's specifically built for poultry. It's not like a generic poultry LLM that you can just ask main questions of poultry, but you can ask about the performance of your own farms. So it's connected to PoultrySync, and you can ask about things that is happening on the farm and what will happen in the future as well, and take some actions or recommendations that you can actually use in order to stop anything that will happen in the future. So it's all connected with the AI models, the predictive models that we already have. And all these predictive models helps in planning as well. So in PoultrySync, we see that AI is an input for planning. So all the predictive models that we already implemented and all the LLM usage and the tasks that actually get from the output of the LLM, all that is input for planning, like forward planning, backward planning. When you get the output from the contracts or the demand from the processing plant, you'll be able to go backward and see what you need to do in order to get that output at the end. Strategic planning, where you can actually do what-if scenarios and see what will happen the next year and compare them together. All this can already happen, and it's already happening right now in PoultrySync. And there are a lot of innovative ideas that's still coming on. And I can see that 5 years, yes, it's actually every day you can see new things that we're adding, and the industry will actually benefit from this.
Well, consumers too, because I bet it just creates better tasting chicken. Is there anything that the industry is oversimplifying when it talks about AI or predictive analytics? Like you mentioned that, a lot of people just think it's a buzzword and they might shrug it off a little bit.
Yes, I can see one of the main things when we go to a new potential integrator or customer, one of the main things, because of course, after what happened with the ChatGPT and all what's happening right now, the different LLMs that are available already right now, you can see that they are asking for AI. And they can see that AI is something that you can plug and play. So this is oversimplification for AI. And AI is not just technology. It's change management. You need to change inside the organization itself. It's not a dashboard It's not just a dashboard that you'll put and that's it. No, there's a lot of work that needs to be done on the ground, making sure that the process is correct from the beginning, making sure that you handle all the data from each part to the other, making sure that you connect the data together to have the full picture. And at the end, as a cherry on the top, you'll have the AI. But without all these steps or without all this roadmap, you'll not get an AI or the output of the AI, impact of the AI at the end. So what we do is that we provide actually a service. It's called a digital maturity assessment. So when we go to a new integrator or customer, we do like this service where we assess everything related to the digitalization inside the organization itself from the poultry perspective. So poultry and digitalization, and and the output of this assessment is mainly an AI roadmap. So we tell them, okay, you have this roadmap with all these steps, and you don't have to go further to the last step right from the very beginning. You have to go through each step alone. And then if you want to go to the AI with the cherry on the top, you have to go through all the steps. So like educating the industry is very important as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any checklists for the companies you're helping? So I had a previous conversation around good versus bad data and maybe biased data. Do you help with any of that type of organization? Like because what we put in AI, what we put out there, right? AI pulls from everywhere. So it's not always going to be that good type of information. Are you seeing the same sort of challenges or obstacles in terms of the poultry industry where there's good versus bad data?
Yeah, of course. They always say garbage in, garbage out. In any solution, this is the way. But what we do is actually, it's not just a checklist. It's different verification, accuracy, validation layers. So what we do is that there's a validation layer at the beginning, which is the main validation layer, which is when you write a number that is, you have a maximum and minimum, a standard number that you need to look at. So this is just the basic validation layer. There is another layer that takes into consideration different measures and correlate them together in order to know that this number is not correct or there is something fishy about this number. So when we find that, the solution directly alerts someone with a higher permission that there is an issue with that number. So you need to check that number, if that's correct or not. In case if it's correct, so it's okay. If not, they need to act upon. So other than that, when the data goes until the model and starts to train on the model, this is the worst case. If you clean it at the source, this is the best case. So that's what we do. We try to clean the data with all the layers until you go to the model. When you go to the model, we know that the data is correct without any problem. Of course, there is also the cleaning the algorithm that we have before the model in case there's something slips out.
Well, Neamat, we are almost out of time. So I just wanted to ask you before I let you go, is there anything in particular that you want this year's summit attendees to pull away from this specific conversation or even your summit session? What should they expect during your session? What are some of the key takeaways that you want them to walk away with before leaving the summit? What sort of conversations do you want them to continue having after the summit? Any final thoughts on that?
Of course, one of the main things is start the live production, of course. Make sure that all your KPIs are not away from the standard. Make sure that you actually are taking care of all the data. Try to connect the data together, get the full picture. Manage AI well. So it's not just technology. Manage the AI with all the steps towards the AI. And last but not least, PoultrySync is built for all that. Of course, I'll be happy to connect with all the attendees and make sure if anyone would like to have help from PoultrySync, we'll be happy to be here.
That'll be amazing. Well, I know to anyone that's tuning in, please register for the event. It's happening in August. There's also an event app that you can sign up for, and you can connect with Neamat right away and ask questions right away ahead of time. So you can do some pre-networking before the actual summit occurs. I will offer a QR code at the end of this conversation so that you can easily sign up and register for the event. And Neamat, I'm so excited to meet you in person, and I can't wait for the summit and connect with everybody in the industry. I've learned a lot about poultry manufacturing, more than I expected to. So I'm super excited to learn more at the summit. So thank you again for tuning in. Thank you, Neamat, for joining me on this special series for Popcorn Innovation Summit. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
That wraps up today's conversation in the Popcorn Innovation Podcast series, brought to you by Cat Squared and co-branded with Mavens of Manufacturing. The bigger story here is not just technology. It is how food manufacturers, processors, producers, partners, and operational leaders are working together to connect the dots across the full farm-to-fork lifecycle. Because when data stays disconnected, decisions stay disconnected. And when decisions remain disconnected, operations pay the price in planning, yield, responsiveness, traceability, labor, margin, and trust. This year's summit is designed to bring these conversations into the same room, enabling the industry to move from operational complexity to operational clarity. To learn more or register for the event, please scan the QR code in the corner.